Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Grants and Government Contract Podcast. So good to see you here, Lainey.
Hi, how are you? Are you staying warm today?
Oh, we got lucky. We got a little bit of snow, so I love the snow. So it's been good.
I know. I'm freshly getting back from, I was in Canada this weekend, which is funny for our podcast today. And it kind of was warm flying in to Atlanta, even with this 25-degree weather, because it was negative 10 degrees up there. So I felt good to be back in the South.
Yeah, well, if you're joining us for the first time here, welcome to the Grants and Government Contract Podcast. And Lainey, it's good to have you back. And if you are a returning guest, thank you for hanging out with us again. Today, we have like a really, really interesting topic to talk about, the Trump effect. And as all of you know, we are under a new administration in terms of the Trump presidential administration. The Republican controls the House and the Senate. So it's going to be some exciting times. But I was just curious about this here, Lainey. Were you scoping out a new home because the new president came to office? Is that why you were visiting Canada, or was it just for fun?
It was just for fun. It was actually, I really enjoy going. I lived in London for a little bit, and I really enjoy going to different countries and kind of seeing their views of just political landscapes, everything. It was a big talk when we were in Canada of what was everyone thinking. They wanted to know our views. I wanted to know what they were thinking. So that's really fun to get to see, just how does the world perceive us? And I think we have some really interesting things to talk about, and just seeing what does the world of government contracting and grants hold for this next administration. Me and you both always say that we don't want to see red or blue. I'm taking your thing on this. We want to see green. And I think there's money to be made. There's money to be made always in government contracting. And if you're on the grant side, there's funding to be had. And I think we're going to see this as we get more into this conversation and what we're going to see over the next 4 years, or what we think we're going to see.
Yeah, we are as a podcast, right? We are all about opportunities, regardless of the political climate, whether you voted for Donald Trump or did not vote for Donald Trump, it doesn't matter, right? It's all about your business have to thrive, your nonprofit has to thrive in every political climate. And so today's podcast, we want to address that a little bit. How do you thrive in a new administration? What are some potential changes? We already see a lot of changes, so we're going to cover a little bit of that today as well. Some of the changes, some of the executive orders that's already happened, but we're also going to talk about some potential things that can happen as well. And so if you're joining us, that's really what today's podcast is all about. Thriving under a new administration, or we call it the Trump effect, in terms of how it can impact your business, your nonprofit organization, and what you need to do. Some ideas and some tips and strategies that you can do so that you can continue to grow your business, your organization, regardless of the political climate. So, with that, you want to go ahead and dive in, Lainey?
Yeah, so I've been really excited about this when I was doing some research to find everything out. I've been super excited about, because my background is political science. So when I was in school, I minored in political science, loved it. I tell Abe, I joke about this a lot, that I truly believed growing up that I would be the first woman president. So I really believe that. Like, some people, they say that, but no, that was my goal. We have not had a woman president, so who knows? Maybe that's a future. But so I've been really excited to just come on here and talk about this. And me and Abe, when we were kind of discussing this morning, we've seen the political landscape change a lot in America. That's no secret. We've seen it change a lot, and we've seen that just look a lot different. And so, Abe, what do you think? Like, what do you think coming in? What are some first ideas?
Well, just a quick comment before we go into that question there. If you're joining us, if you could put in your company name and where you're joining us from, that would be awesome. It gives us a little perspective where you're joining us from. And we do have some bonuses, some prizes to give out at the end. So stick around to the very end of this episode here. We're going to give out some bonuses for all of you that hangs out with us to the very end. But yeah, I have a slightly different perspective than most Americans. I became a citizen of the United States in my early 20s, but I immigrated here as a refugee escaping the atrocities of Laos. Laos was during the Vietnam War. Vietnam fell, Laos fell, Cambodia fell to new regimes, and all of Southeast Asia fell under new regimes. And so we opposed the communist regime. And when the U.S. pulled out of Southeast Asia, we allied with the United States. And so we became a target of the new regime. And a lot of our family members, peers, community members were put into what they call re-education camp, but it's really a concentration camp. Some of them did not survive. Many people died. So I've lived through and I've seen atrocities in my lifetime as a young person. I'm super grateful that we get a chance to live in a nation that we escaped the communist regime. 3 Lutheran churches in Ohio sponsored us to come to the United States. So grateful for the humanitarian work and the service organizations out there that made it possible for us to come to the United States. So, and I say this here, I would not trade my worst day in America for the best day in Laos, right? And so I love the environment. The America is a land of opportunities. America, we talk about, trying to make America great again. America is a great nation compared to many other places in the world. So I'm super grateful that I get to live here, regardless of the political climate. It doesn't matter if you're joining us and you're a Republican. Doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or you're a Libertarian or whatever spectrum of the political that you fall. As a audience member, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a nonprofit organization, doesn't matter who's in office. Lainey said earlier, right? It's not about blue or red. It's not even about purple. It's about, when it comes to your organization, it's about green. How do you access all the opportunities that's available for you out there? And only in America that we have access. In Laos, the average person makes about, and this is middle class, a middle class person in Laos makes about $150 a month. Think about that for a second. The whole GDP of Laos is about $17-18 billion. We spend about $25 billion in janitorial and cleaning services at the federal government contracting level. Just taking out trash is worth more than the economy of a whole nation, right? So yes, there's opportunities here. But today, we want to talk about the political climate a little bit. And again, we don't care what political climate that you have leanings towards to. Don't get caught up in the propaganda. Let me share some. This is just personal opinion now. Let me share about propaganda. In any political system, there has to be propaganda so that the politicians can get you fired up, you angry, fear, to put fear inside of your hearts so that you can contribute money to whichever political party it is so that you can go out there and vote, right? Because as a politician, that's the only way they're going to get you to go out there and vote and contribute money, is to create fear, to create hate, to create anger so that you get emotionally riled up to go do something. That's not what this show is all about. This podcast is all about where in all of this here, regardless of whatever political climate it is, how do you access the opportunity? So that's what we're talking about today. So first off, I want to talk about so Donald Trump just got sworn in. In the same breath, there were multiple executive orders that were issued in his first day in office. So why don't we talk about some of the early executive orders and because these things we know it's happening right now, right? And later on, we're going to talk about potentially what other things can happen in the political under this new administration. But let's talk about what has currently happened in these first few hours here. So you want
Yeah.
to share a little bit about that and your thoughts on some of the early executive orders?
Yeah, so I think one that I think we should touch on first is what probably everybody woke up to this morning, which is the whole idea of this AI. We're trying to get ahead on AI. What does that mean for government contracting? What does that mean for America? What do you think about that, Abe?
Well, I saw the news conference, the press conference last night that President Trump, along with Larry Ellison, with the president of SoftBank, as well as AI, Sam Altman. So they created a new initiative called Stargate. And Stargate is a $500 billion investment around AI technology. And that the vision is to make the United States a central point for the AI revolution. Now, I follow AI. I follow AI for a while, and we are a little bit behind. Now, the the Chinese government has made it. China understands that they lack certain technology, and so they have made a commitment that they were not first to the moon, right? They were not first into space, and so they made a commitment that they're going to be the AI is going to be one of the key tenets of the Chinese government and the Chinese people itself. So they've been, because it's a government where they have tight control, they've been tracking their people, they've been indexing everybody's health records. They've been doing all these different things around AI, and so they've not only, whether it's good or bad, they've taken some U.S. technology and they advanced it greatly. We just don't know how far advanced AI is in China. But so my own personal opinion is that we're behind other nations as it relates to AI, even though we think we're ahead. But my own personal opinion is that we're not. But with this initiative, where Stargate, we're gonna take in private investment, and along with that, my own personal opinion is that there's gonna be some federal funding behind some of these private investment or some tax incentive. It's early on, so we don't know what all those things will look like. But $500 billion to really take AI to the next level. If you're in technology, if you're a software company, if you're an IT company, if you are anything that touches technology, you have to make some major changes to incorporate AI into everything you do, whether you're creating an AI agent or you're bringing AI into a different segment of your software, or if you're a company, you have to start using AI to streamline certain processes, certain methodology. So yeah, so I think there's going to be a lot of infrastructure around AI. The some of the facilities are already being built from private investment already, but with the new infrastructure and the new Stargate initiative, I believe that technology is going to be a major factor for us in the next 4 years.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm interested to see what happens. I always, if you've been a listener, you probably heard the story, but Abe is actually the person that introduced me to AI. So I was in this CCM course and he said, "Hey guys, I gotta show you this new thing that's happening. It's amazing. You need to get on it." And he showed me it and it just blew my mind. And I started telling everybody about Chat GBT and the things it could do, and I fell in love with it. So I think that's funny. I A realization I had, Abe, and is that I have never been the I've only been under one administration in government contracting. So I started my government
Mhm.
contracting during the Biden administration. It was early on, but I'm even though I've had what 3 going on 4 years in it, I've only been under one administration. So I'm interested to see, the changes I see. How many administrations do you think you've been under in this world?
Oh man, I don't know if I want to tell everybody, but let me just say this here. I'm gonna pulling up this here. I'm gonna share the screen with everybody. It doesn't matter what administration you're
Mhm.
under, right? We know that money is being spent every single year. So what I do is I pull up the last 6 years of federal spending in terms of contracts. And I did not do grants, but because we could potentially do grants too.
Yeah.
And so if you look back to 2019, $589 billion was awarded in this year here. We go to 2020, $671 billion. Now 2020, we saw an increase because of COVID, right? So a lot of this here is contracts to big pharmaceutical companies. And so we saw a big increase. In the 2021, we saw a smaller dip because we navigated through the pandemic to some degree. We're at the tail end of the pandemic. But then we saw another increase in 2022, $694 billion. In 2023, $760 billion. 2024, it's almost equal to 2023. So spending will continue to go up. You're going to see a little bit up and down like this here, but it's going to continue to go up. Now, 2024 has not fully been reported yet. Even though the fiscal year has ended, we're starting the second quarter of the fiscal year. Just FYI, right? The government does not use the calendar year. They use the fiscal year, which the new year started October 1st and ended December 31st. So now we're in January. So now we're talking about second quarter at the federal fiscal year. So $754 billion is almost the same as $760 billion. It may potentially go up a little bit more before it's all reported here. What does this mean? This means that it doesn't matter what administration is in office. Government spending is going to continue. Now, Lainey, you said how many administration? I've been doing government contracting since 2008. So I've seen 2006 is when I first got into the government market, but really doing government contracting work in 2008. So I've seen a few administrations. Under every administration, different administration would say, we want to cut certain spending. We want to increase certain spending. When it comes to congressional district, let's cut your district, your programs, but I don't want to cut my program, right? So that's the political climate that we're in. So yes, it's about fiscal responsibility and it's about cutting the deficit. But at the same time, a lot of that is word of mouth for political purposes. But every congressman, every senator, they want funding to go to their districts. And so lip service is one thing. What really happens behind the scenes is another thing. Why? Because we see the trend, right? Continues to go up year after year. So fear not. Doesn't matter what political climate you're in. Opportunities are there. Our goal is to help you think through how to strategize. And with some of the shifts, right? Some agencies going to spend more. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Some agencies are going to spend less. How do you navigate this landscape and make sure that your business thrive regardless of who's in office?
Yeah, and something too, I mean, you can attest to this. There's one thing that happened in every single administration. Contracts were given out and contracts were won. Money was made in every single, and that's gonna continue to happen. They need services, they need goods, and that's not gonna be any different. The same thing with grants. Grants are, yes, there could be different funding priorities and different things. We see that in the grant landscape every single year. Different budgets are put out, different things, but at the end of the day, there's still federal funded programs and grants. Organizations are still getting grants. Something I did want to say, thank you everybody for joining on. I have a lot of y'all and I see some conversations going. I would love for y'all all to drop, some people have already done it, but drop your name in the chat and then what industry you're coming from. I think that's really cool to see different industries. And also as we're talking through, we can kind of see some different industries to be pointing out and talking through. Abe, before we get into the grant, we did have a question that I wanted to highlight. And it is, would U.S. spending be the best source to find AI government contractors / contractees?
This is one source. USASpendinggov is a part of, under President Obama back in 2008, there was a big shift to create more transparency around fiscal spending, government spending, because as taxpayers, right, the government is responsible for reporting back to us where our money is going and who's receiving this money. So USA Spending allows you to come and find who's winning contracts. And I did a summary here, but if you actually want to find out who's winning contract, you come up here, right? So for the last few years, the last 6 years, 1.5 million grants were awarded. And then what you want to do is, if you're in the nonprofit world, you want to see which agency is awarding federal grants, and you want to see which organization is receiving federal grants. Then you come down here and click on the download button. And now this is too much data, so you have to do it by less years, because it's saying that there's over 500,000 transaction here, because we're looking at 1.5 million. So you have to do it by less years. And then once you download the Excel here, click on the download button. It's going to take about 10 minutes to download all this data. But once you have the Excel, then you can manipulate the data. It will tell you exactly who are winning these grants or these contracts. And then you can use that as how to engage them, how to build relationships with these. Once you have their name, contact information. Now, if you're looking for contracting officer, this data is not going to tell you that. This data is going to tell you who the primes are, who the grantee, the person, the organization receiving the grants. You're going to see which agency are awarding the grants, but there's a whole nother layer of how to fine tune which contracting officer, which program managers are handling all these different grants. That's a whole different lesson. Not for today, because we're talking about the Trump effect and the new administration, but at another time, we'll talk about how to dive deeper. Or if you want to reach out to me, be more than happy to talk about some of those things separately.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Abe. And I'm loving all the chats. We're having a very interactive chat session happening right now. And just, I want to tell everybody that we're going to be highlighting something really exciting that we as an association have started in the government contracting world. And I've seen some chats about teaming partners, and we have some really cool things that are happening there. So stick around for the end, and we're going to kind of make that announcement, show you some really cool things that I think that some people are definitely going to want to learn about. But let's dive into some of these early executive orders that we've seen, and something that I think a lot of our audience and a lot of our members have had questions about is the DEI.
Well,
What is that?
Before you shift gear, let me make one final comment about this chart here. So we looked at earlier contracts. I just want to quickly talk about grants, right? So grants is usually more than contracts. So if you look at this here, right? So you're talking about trillions of dollars in grants being awarded to different organizations out there. 1.2 trillion versus 760 billion in terms of contracts. So lots of opportunities. Don't fret. Let's navigate how you access all these opportunities here. But with that, yes, let's go and talk about the DEI initiatives. One of the very biggest challenge to some business out there. If you're in the training world, if you're in the HR world, big changes going to happen right under the executive order for DEI. So go ahead and chime in on that, Lainey.
Yeah. So we've seen this executive order signed, which is that the diversity, equity, inclusion, they're saying it's going to move to a more merit based. And I think a lot of people are going to have questions. What does that mean? I'm a DEI trainer. Like, this is what I do. Am I out of a job? No. We have come up with some ideas of just things. I think we're going to see this with anything. You see this in every single, as the world goes forward. It's not anything about politics or anything, but we're always changing. Abe made a good point earlier today when I was talking to him, is for people that remember, what was it like when the internet became a thing? Nobody wanted to do the internet. Nobody wanted to do, this idea of when work was changing to the internet, or companies, they had to realign what their focus was. Well, look at us now. We're sitting here, we're streaming, we're on the internet. We've all been on the internet all day today. So there's always going to be changes. But Abe, what do you think are some of the best ideas for people that are worried about this DEI executive order? What could that mean? And then also, like, what is that going to mean for me as a WOSB? Do you think that's going to mean anything for me, or what are some of your ideas on that?
Sure. Let me give a little bit of background first, right? So historically, under a Democrat administration, there's a lot of support for DEI. And for some of you, DEI stands for diversity, equity, inclusion. Under a Republican administration, they're more into MEI. Now, some of you may have not heard that terminology before, but MEI stands for merit, excellence, and intelligence. Now, some of the principles are the same tenets, built around the same foundation. Some of it is built around different thoughts, different ideology. And so with the federal executive order saying that, okay, we're going to move away from DEI from a federal perspective, here's some early feedback I want to talk about that there. And then I'm going to come back and talk about what does that mean for your small business, right? If you are a women-owned, veteran-owned, 8A company, does that impact you? Can those certifications go away? We'll come back and talk about that in 1 second. So there's two type of organizations out there. We know that at the federal level, they're going to shift away from DEI training, and that's specific under the executive order. At the commercial world, the private sector world, 80% of the Fortune 500 companies are keeping their DEI program. So, and so like Apple came out and they're saying we're doubling down on DEI because it's in our core of who we are. Costco came out and said, if you, in fact, let me put the actual quote because I don't want to misquote it. This is the comment that was said about Costco. If you crumble when your values are tested, they weren't values, they were marketing campaigns, right? Wow. And so certain organizations out there, they're saying, hey, you know what? We absolutely believe in this here. And surveys were done, and 80% of corporations are not backing away from DEI, at least not at this time. Many of them have openly come out and say, hey, we are doubling down on this area. This is part of what we are, we believe. And then there are some organizations, right? There's some organizations like McDonald's, a few big corporations. They say, oh man, we're so glad that this is going away and we don't have to, we can dismiss our diversity, manager. We can restructure funds and put it into different places. But if that is the environment, how do you navigate your business in this? Especially if you are a trainer, leadership trainer, DEI consultant, how do you navigate? Here's some thoughts. Don't shrink back from your principles, right? But at the same time, adjust so that you can thrive under a different political climate. Now, under the Trump administration, they're going to increase workforce development. They're going to increase training opportunities. So if you are a trainer, because really, my perspective about government contracting is not about what you do, it's about how to win government contracts. If you can win government contract, you can do any type of work out there. So you shift gears, you add other services to what you do soft skills training, do technical training, do Excel training, do leadership training, do compliance training. So shift gears a little bit, maybe less focus on DEI. Now, if you're doing DEI, focus more on certain at the state level, the county level, and corporate level, right? For example, the Minnesota, California, New York, there's certain states that's going to double down on DEI training. So you shift gears if you're that type of company that does that type of training. If you're just a government contractor, it doesn't matter what you train. You focus to the type of training that is going to increase in spending under the next 4 years under a Republican administration. So that would be my suggestion. Now, someone asked a question earlier. Let me, Lane, you want to pull that up on the chat? They asked a question about how will DEI impact small business certifications? And so let me address that while Laney is pulling the question. So the question is, if you are a women-owned business, right? If you are an 8A certified company, if you are a HubZone or a certified, veteran-owned small business, how will this shift impact your business? let me share some thoughts. One, the STVSB program will not change much at all, if any. Why? Because there's no one in Congress brave enough to attack our veteran forces, our veteran community. So no one will survive that if they attack the STVSB program. And so the women-owned program, WSB, EDW's program, no one's going to be brave enough. I don't think anyone's going to say, we're going to go out there and dismantle the WSB program. So nothing to be worried about there. For HubZone is kind of like on the border for me. But HubZone stands for Historically Underutilized Business Zone. So I don't see any much going on there as well. Really the only program I feel that there's going to be, and there's already been an undercurrent of attack on the 8A program. Maybe not even just undercurrent, but a overt attack on the 8A program. We've seen that through the Ultima versus SBA and USDA about a year and a half ago. So that created some changes, but the SBA 100%, let me say that again, the SBA 100% does not want the 8A program to go away. So they have restructured to be in compliance with the federal judge that said the 8A program, the presumption of social disadvantage needs to be revamped. So really the only change there under the 8A is, instead of the presumption that if you are of a certain ethnic community or racial background, there is a presumption of social disadvantage. You just have to write 2 incidents of how you are socially disadvantaged. Now that does open doors for certain other members of the community. If you can prove, right? It doesn't matter if you, in this situation, it doesn't matter if you are Caucasian American. Doesn't matter if it doesn't matter what your background is, right? If you can prove that you're socially disadvantaged, you can get into the 8A program. Now, I've seen white female get into the 8A program. I have not seen a white man get into the 8A program yet. Now, that doesn't mean it hasn't happened in my day-to-day of government contracting. I have not seen that happen. So I think there will be a continued opposition to the 8A program, but I don't see it changing much anytime soon, because a lot of this here has to be challenged in court, and an executive order cannot dismantle a program. Now, executive order can do certain things, but executive order cannot just go out there and dismantle certain programs out there that's had wide support and a long history of success. So if you're concerned about it, I would say be concerned, but don't worry too much. Don't spend your time losing sleep about, will the WSB program go away? It's not going away anywhere. In fact, it will. There may be some of these programs may be strengthened, under the administration. So, but we'll tackle that as time progresses.
Yeah, and we'll definitely be coming up with more episodes as more stuff comes out. We are always learning about what is happening in our world and everything. Going back to what we were talking about with the DEI, I just wanted to point out that in Trump's first term, we did see an initiative for training, just as Abe was talking about, like the vocational training, the job training. It was actually called Pledge to America's Workers. And it was there was an emphasis on the vocational training, workforce readiness, and STEM. So I think that we could possibly see that program come back up and it have, perfect opportunities for people in training and not moving away from that at all. I think another huge thing that people have been talking about are these tariffs. What does that mean? Is that going to hurt us? There's just been a lot of talk about that. What do you think about that, Abe? Like, what do you think in the government contracting space? How does that affect us?
Yeah, as a government contractor, tariffs may have some type of impact on you. So, for example, tariffs on China is not going to have very little impact in terms of government contracting. It may have impact on you as a consumer, but not necessarily as a government contractor. Why? Because products imported from China cannot be sold to the federal government to start off with. And some of you are aware of TAA, right? That the TA is the agreement that says that if a nation is not willing to be part of the Trade Agreement Act, TAA, then you cannot sell products manufactured in these countries into the government, into the federal government. And now there's been some fraud that's happened in the past, right? American companies will order products, whether it's made in China or made in Vietnam or certain countries. There are certain countries that you cannot buy their product and sell it to the federal government. And so they will bring it to the United States. They will put a new label on it, and they would give it a new name, right? They give a new name, new label, and they will put the sticker "Made in America." And some of these companies end up losing those contracts, end up having to pay penalties and fines, and some of the CEOs end up getting charged, in terms of fraud and other type of serious criminal act. So tariffs, in terms of manufacturing, I don't see it impacting government contractors too much, but tariffs to Canada and to Mexico. Many of you guys have heard the term NAICS code, right? NAICS code stands for North American Industrial Classification System. Now, the history of that goes back a little bit. So I'm going to take you guys back in history a little bit. Under President Clinton, we were using SIC codes, right? SIC codes. And with the European Union getting strengthened in the 90s and so forth, the United States had and North America overall had a vision, right? How do we strengthen trade between Canada, US, and Mexico? This is North America. So there was supposed to be an Amero, right? Just like there's a euro, that there is the potential of the Amero, where there's going to be a new currency potentially. That never happened. But through President Clinton's years, we shifted from SIC codes to NAICS code. So that's why when you register in SAM, you're doing your Secretary of State, they're going to ask you, what's your primary NAICS code? What is your primary service or product commodity codes here? So that's the history of NAICS code. So with that, the way NAICS code is going to how trade is happening, right? Canada, US, Mexico, we standardized. We got rid of the SIC codes. Canada, US, and Mexico, we wanted to strengthen our trading between these three big nations here in North America so that we can increase economic productivity. So with the tariffs, we're going backwards a little bit, right? Where our biggest trading partners in our own backyard, how that will impact you as a consumer, I think it will impact you as a consumer, but how that will impact you as a government contractor, I don't see a lot of impact there in terms of the tariffs as it relates to selling products to the government. Now, a lot of our trade with Mexico and Canada is steel, right? So if you're in certain industry that is heavily tied to steel, there may be some impact, there may be some service, but there's probably not going to be any tariffs on service because a lot of our, some of you guys may not know, but we don't outsource our technology only to India. We outsource it to Mexico. We outsource it to Brazil. We outsource it to Chile. A lot of American technology companies, they have managed services. They have help desk support, software development. It's outsourced in South America as well as in Mexico. So our trading partners is across the different sector. As it relates to products, I don't see it as a major impact because if you're buying your products from Mexico or manufactured in Mexico, if you're buying your products manufactured in Canada, the tariff is on everybody. It's not just on your own company, right? So it's not going to impact your business that much because it's a level playing field. So yes, it will hurt you as a consumer potentially, but as a government contractor, I don't see it as potentially impact unless most of your products come, like if you're in medical supplies, the top medical supplies are manufactured in Germany. Medical supplies from India, China cannot be sold to the U.S. government unless there's certain exemptions. But medical supplies, if you're buying it from Germany and there's no tariff there, and versus you're buying medical supplies from Canada, that may have some potential impact in very niche industry. There may be some impact.
Yeah, and that's the point I was going to make, is that these tariffs are over everybody. So it's not just you that's going to be affected by it. It's every single thing. So if the prices go up, the prices are going up for everybody, unless they're breaking the law and getting them from someone else. And I think it's funny. I don't know. Have you ever watched the movie War Dogs?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah,
As a
I love
government contractor, you guys have to watch the movie War
yeah.
Dogs.
That first movie is actually what got me into government contracting, was War Dogs. I watched that movie, and it's the story Abe's telling. They got on SAM.gov. They did it very easily, which was funny, but it was some college kids that got on SAM.gov, and they ended up buying goods from a country that you're not allowed to sell to the United States. I think that their goods were from China, specifically weaponry from China, which you are not allowed to sell to the United States government. And so they just rebranded it so that they could sell. And the only reason, it's based on a true story, the only reason they got caught is because in this process, they forgot to pay one of their warehouse workers in like either Russia or Ukraine. I think it was probably Ukraine. And the warehouse worker called them into the FBI, and that's how they got caught. And then they had to go to jail and pay back all their money. It was a huge contract, but it's a fun movie. You should watch it. We had a question come through, and I do want to touch on it. They're asking what grant programs would you say you should focus on if you're in healthcare? And something that without going really deep into it, I would definitely look, like Scott said, into grants.gov and just kind of put your focus. Another thing that I would do is take a look back at last week's podcast. We talked about a grant searching program that actually it's free for you to put in your information about your foundation or what your organization does, and it'll pull grants for you. It's a great way to look at the foundation side, and it's going to be pulling in from grants.gov. Abe, were you posting the website into the comments? Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, with Open Grants, and they have this free, before you log in, you don't have to log in or anything. You're actually able to put in your information, and it will give you a funding landscape report. So that's something that I would definitely, another thing just off the top of my head, if you said you're providing trauma care, I would look into like with the CJJC. They do a lot of that. That's going to be through your state and through different things. But yeah, definitely check that out. Be sure if anybody else has any other questions they want us to talk about, to put that in the chat so we can keep going. Something I think that is really interesting, Abe, is this new idea, or it's not a new idea, but we've seen some executive orders on it. We've seen some talk about it, but some positive things for the oil and gas industries that are in the United States. You know, I think that that's going to be a door opener for some contractors if we have anybody in that field. If you're in that field, post in the comment. We would love to see that if we have somebody in that field. What do you think about that, Abe?
I'm going to tell a quick story here. So, you know, my role at the Government Contractors Association is, you know, we help businesses that come to us and say, hey, I do this here, and how do I take my product, my services to the government market? So we had a large rail company, and large rail companies, they must, you know, because they do a lot of transportation for government and military and so forth. They said, we buy a lot of fuel, and we can't find women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses to meet our federal, you know, and our contracting goals. And so they said, all we want is a company that actually can do the work, but they don't have to do any of the work. We're going to buy the fuel directly from the same people we're going to buy from. All they're going to do is just invoice. We're going to have a contract to buy fuel from them. They're going to have a contract to buy fuel from the actual distributor of the fuel. So it's just a shifting of paperwork. And we need a women-owned business or minority-owned business that can do fuel for the railroad yard. And so I reached out to, I looked into the system, and I found like 3 or 4 companies that can do it. And I reached out to them. They said, "Oh, we don't do that anymore." And I said, "This is a contract. All you have to do is sign an agreement. The distributor will actually distribute the fuel on your behalf directly to the rail yard. And all you have to do is just say, I can do this fuel here." And I could reach out to 2 or 3 companies, and they said, "Yeah, we don't do that anymore." So, but opportunities are there, right? And for some of you who are very environmentally conscious, uh, under the Trump administration, there's going to be budget shifts, and so this is very important for you to understand this here. There's going to be some budget shifts. The EPA is going to receive less funding. Certain Department of Education is probably going to receive less funding. Many civilian agency is going to see their budget decrease. Not all, but many of them will see their budget decrease. Historically, under a Republican administration, Homeland Security is going to see budget increase. Sub agencies like Border Patrol and ICE, they're going to see the budget increase, right? The Department of Defense, Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, potentially Space Force, and some of these newer agencies, they're going to see their budget increase. So as a government contractor, you want to say, okay, how do I play in this landscape? Well, I'm going to spend more time building relationship, spend more time nurturing relationship with where the budget is going to increase. Does that mean you spend less time doing EPA? If you're in the industry and EPA is the main agency that you want to work with, no, you double down on EPA, right? Because the EPA is not going away anywhere. So with that, coming back to what we're talking about here, increase in terms of oil and gas, we're going to potentially see some federal lands that might receive permits for drilling, for fuel, natural gas, for some of these coal and some of these initiatives that's going to potentially happen. So if you're in that industry, this is good timing for you. But let me share my thoughts here. If you are in that industry as a whole, that is a dying industry. If you were, Lainey and I talked about earlier, right? If you are in the newspaper industry and the internet came around and you did not make the shift to going online, your print media business at some point is going to get diminished, and many of them died over the last 20 years, right? So if you are in the oil, gas, it's never going to die. Like print media will never die, but it will be a shadow of what it used to be. So if you are in the oil and natural gas, they're fighting with everything they can to preserve to the market share, but that will continue to diminish over the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And I foresee at some point in the future, it will be a very minor part of the whole economy. The oil and gas industry is huge, multi-trillion-dollar industries, but at some point it will not be that anymore. So if you're in that industry now, hooray! For the next 4 years, there's increased opportunities, but you need to diversify. But there's still lots of time to diversify. If you support, if you are a consultant or if you're a service provider, and you're in IT, but your number one client is Shell, right? You need to diversify outside of that industry. Now, Shell, these huge energy company, they understand the writing on the wall too. So they're diversified along the way. They've seen the writing on the wall, so they're going to diversify a little bit. But from a federal perspective, this is good time if you're in the energy field. Great opportunities during this time here.
Yes, and I also think um, in Trump's last administration, we saw some incentives for small businesses and for new businesses. So there were some tax incentives for that. There's a possibility that we could see that. So if you are venturing into a new business, you're wanting to get in government contract, whatever that's going to look like, there's probably some pros that you're going to see on that tax incentive side, or even other incentives that haven't came out yet. Um, and as well as we saw a lot of small business grants come out in that last administration. So that's something that's really exciting. Um, Abe, we have a little bit of time left, and I know we have a lot of people on here that have kind of been talking about partnerships and, you know, finding different people for different stuff. And we have come up with a solution for this problem. What is it? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, sure. I'm gonna hold off on that a little bit, tease everybody a little bit before I show you guys how a new innovative way of how we're going to, create an environment where you can naturally team with other companies. I want to address a few more topic around the new administration as we shift gears here. So, um, one big change is under the new administration is the border, immigration. How does that impact you? It impacts you from a workforce, right? And so there's two main themes around workforce. One is there is a executive order to freeze federal hiring for the short term, except for like military and a few other labor sensitive categories. But in general, federal employees, and then along with that, there's the what's called the Show Up Act, right? The forcing or not forcing, but encouraging and putting in policies for individual who's been teleworking, who's been working, through the pandemic. We live in a new environment, right? The workforce have changed forever. Uh, Before COVID, I went to the office every single day. Today, I have an office. GCA, we have a nice office, but Lena, you've seen the office twice since we've been, we know each other. I go to the office about once or twice a month, and so the world have changed. So the federal government is saying, and I'll address two sides: how immigration will impact government contractors, and then also how the federal workforce hiring will impact government contractors. So first of all, the federal employees, um, there's going to the freeze means good news for you as a government contractor because there's two type of people that work for federal agencies. One are employees, and two are contractors. Contractor meaning they're your employees. You won a contract to provide IT managed services or software development or janitorial services. The government may have one or two maintenance person working as employees on a facility, or facility manager working on the facility as a employee, but they have contractors who are janitorial services, maintenance people, uh, who goes in there every single day to support that specific facilities there. And so if there's a freeze of federal employees, that means there's going to be an increase in contractors. So this is good time for you, right? If you are a government contractor, this is really great because that means there's going to be a shift. And historically, this has been the case for a Democrat administration. They tend to hire federal employees more. A Republican administration, they tend to hire contractors more. So this is positive news to some of you. So that, and again, it doesn't matter what service industry you're in, whether it's administrative management, whether it is IT services, whether it's janitorial services, construction services. That means there's more contractors that's going to be on these government facilities doing work. Instead of employees, they're contractors. They're your employees working on behalf of the government. So that's good news in terms of the labor workforce. There may be a little bit of shift where some of these individuals will retire because they're used to working from home, and so now their life have changed. Some of them are new employees that started working under, in terms of federal workers, telework. Some of them will leave because they're going to say, you know what, I have to drive 2 hours to work now. I can't do that anymore because they have moved, life have changed over the last 3-4 years. So there will be some changes there. But like, overall, it's good news for you as a government contractor. Now, let's talk about immigration and how that can impact businesses as government contractors or, in the private sector as well. The immigrant communities, when someone, whether they come here legally or they come here without documentation. Now, this is my own personal opinion. The only people that are illegal in this country are all of us. this land belonged to the Native Americans. We all came here illegally, and so if we're going to categorize illegal, I don't use that term because people either come here documented to come here or undocumented to come to the United States. And so if someone came here undocumented, that means that they did not have the proper authorization. They did not go through the proper channel to get into here, whether they came in through train, through a plane, through a ship, however they got to the United States. They came here and then they're going to look for opportunities to work, right? Same thing with those that came here, even though they're documented, they came here. If they have limited English proficiency, they're going to work in industry that is more labor heavy and not, in what we call blue collar industry, right? The janitorial services, the construction industries, the field workers, the farmers, and so forth, supporting the farm, the Department of Agriculture, and that side of the economy and so forth. So if we see that, what does that mean to us as a society? If there's going to be less workforce in construction, look for your construction costs to go up. We already have a shortage of skilled laborers as it relates to construction, the construction industry, with all of these different hurricanes and natural disaster, whether it's in California that we've seen the tragedy that's happened there, the losses that's happened there, or whether it's in Florida or the Gulf Coast, or whether it's the Atlantic coast, or right here in Georgia where we live, right? We've seen some major storm that's impacted Georgia, North Carolina, the Appalachian Mountains, and all over the U.S. There's some type of natural disaster. In fact, every year I do 1 or 2 classes about how to take advantage of opportunities related to natural disaster responses and so forth. So that'll be another day when we talk about that class there. But that means if there's less workforce in these blue collar industry, that means cost is going to go up for food, right? Because the immigrant communities, they work in with the farmers, so potentially fruits and vegetables may potentially go up. The construction industry will be greatly impacted, so look for that to go up. If you are in the construction industry, your margins are already tight, right? Construction in the government market, your typical net profit margins is about 5 to 9%. If you are a thriving construction company in the government market, in terms of general construction, your margins are tight already. You're making somewhere 5 to 9%. Last week, we looked at the Gauge report. 24% of companies have negative net profit margins when they win government contract. And so if you have not seen the Gauge report, in fact, I'll put the link in the chat in a little bit here. The Gauge report surveyed 1,100 government contractors, and they said, of this, what percentage of businesses receive 25% net profit margins or greater? 9% said that they had greater than 25% net profit margin, meaning that they put that money into the bank. 24% said that they lost money when they won a contract. So if we're in an environment where it's more competitive, labor in certain industries is going to go up, just prepare your business for that there. So that's kind of my thought on that. Any other things, Lainey, you want to bring up before we shift gears into how can businesses team? And we set up a new way of how to do that there. So,
well, just my kind of ending thoughts on a new administration. What does that look like? I know everybody, it's a weird time, it's a transition time. We don't know what the future holds, that kind of stuff is. I hope that watching this, you can get that there are pros and cons to everything. So even if something maybe looks like a con right now, there's still the good side to it. And there's something that you can either move towards or there's other options. So I want everybody to kind of leave here understanding that there's options. There's always going to be contracts, and that, you're one contract away, you're one grant away. We did have a question about, if we help people that don't have a company yet but want to get into government contracting. And yes, we do. I'm going to drop our contact down below. We would love to reach out to you and talk more about you. We have a couple classes and we do coaching as well. So there's some different options. And you might be very interested in this option that Abe is about to show you of something new that we've started.
Absolutely. So the part of people ask me, hey, why don't you do government contracting yourself? I do have a few, I'm an advisor to a few companies. So that's how I do government contracting, is supporting those companies as an advisor. I have a small equity stake in those companies by advising them. And so that's how I do government contracting. But my passion is to empower the underserved business community and helping them win contracts. So like two of the companies, one company got a $50 billion contract. Another company got a $50 billion contract, but that's a big IDIQ contract. So we don't count that as money. But in terms of the business that we've supported, in terms of monetary money come in, our business have won over $2 billion in revenue coming into their companies. And many of them are brand new companies. They just say, hey, I want to start a company. What do I do? And so it's been a joy to be able to support some of these companies to go from zero revenue to now they're doing millions and millions of government contracts in the industry. So but this is the new community, right? And this is to enhance your growth opportunities in the government market. So we started we shifted our old platform into the new platform, and we call it the GovCon Community. So GovCon.community is the domain name, and Lainey can type that into the chat. So if you want to go and check it out, look at it there. But if you come in here, you can see that it is a thriving community of different things going on. So think of it as a LinkedIn group for government contractors or a Facebook group for government contractors. But now, instead of getting distracted with ads, getting distracted with all these other things that when you're on social media, you can spend 3 hours watching reels, or you can spend 3 hours watching shorts or whatever. The day will be gone. Here is specifically around government contracting. So one thing that we're doing that is going to really help many of you is called our Teaming Corner. And in the Teaming Corner, starting in next week, January 28th, we're going to start doing what we call Pitch Day. And so you come in to Teaming Corner, you come in here, and every Tuesday at 12 noon, we have Pitch Day. So what is Pitch Day, right? You come and you pitch your businesses. So how does that work? Join the community, come in, and then you sign this, this little form here that you want to pitch. And then we do it based upon the order of who signed up first. And then we also do it based upon the tier of membership. So during pitch day, you want to share, you have 3 minutes to share. So if you're a construction company and you're looking for a teaming partner that might be in Washington, D.C., you might come and you might say, my name is Abraham. My company is Abraham's Construction. We're located in New York, but we're expanding into Washington, D.C., and we're looking for a teaming partner that can do bridges, roads, horizontal construction that's based out of Washington, D.C. And we're also looking for DBE certified businesses. Something for you guys to remember me by is I have a hat collection. Every single day I wear a different hat. So you call me the Hat Man, right? So that's your 3-minute pitch. And so you come and you pitch. If you're, some of you are service providers. And so you might come and you might say, hey, I specialize in mobilization funding, and I help businesses have access to money. So that would be your pitch during pitch day on Teaming Tuesday. So this is really cool. We're going to, our first session is going to be next Tuesday, 12 noon. Go to the website, join the community, and come and pitch, for teaming partners. That's one way. Now, the other way is you can also do what we call post your needs here, right? So in terms of requesting teaming partners, you can come in here and you can just type in here that this is who I am. This is what I'm looking for. And whereas pitch day, it's live pitching. And so the life of that, yes, we do record that and we're going to post it on social media so people will see you over time. But if you pitch it into the actual posting area, into this community here, then it will, anyone that comes in, they can see, oh yeah, this person is looking for this or that. So that's what this is. Teaming Tuesday is awesome. Is going to be really helpful for some of you who are looking for teaming partners. We know that to survive, to thrive, to grow, you need to have teaming partners. Teaming and relationship is at the heart of every single government contract that you work on. 70% of projects require 2 or more businesses to work together. So you absolutely need teaming partners. Some of you who are a little bit large companies, Teaming Tuesday is not about you finding a teaming partner. Teaming Tuesday is about you finding subcontractors. So it doesn't matter where you're at. You can come and find primes to work with, other small business to work with, or subcontractors to work with on Teaming Tuesday. And then we also, a few other side note before we wrap up here, we actually put industry events. So we're aggregating all of the industry events in the government market, and we're putting it into one place. So all of the events is going to be in one place. So you can come in here and you can say, oh, what's happening today? Like you can see January 23rd, January 23rd, January 23rd. There's a whole bunch of events happening on January 23rd. So instead of trying to find it, all over the place, we're creating an ecosystem to where everything tied to government contracting come into one place. And if you're looking for GSA consultants, if you're looking for pricing expert, we're bringing in the professionals in the industry into one place as well. So if you want to hire an expert, you can come and hire an expert here. If you are an expert, you can come and promote your solutions in here. So we don't want you to promote your solutions in the community, because this is where you come and everybody helps each other here. But you can come into the industry promotion and say, hey, I help do pricing, or I do DCAA, and business can say, oh, you know what? I need a DCAA expert. I need my accounting system to be in compliance. And you can promote your industry services here as well. So that's the new community. Why don't we give out a special to somebody who's hanging out with us to the end? Why don't we do a giveaway? Because we do a giveaway every single time. And so for this giveaway, why don't you do your thing? You think of a number between 1 and 500, and we're going to give away a free membership into the GovCon community. The GovCon community, it's a small investment, but we're going to give out one giveaway here to a bronze membership. So, and if you join us now, you actually become a founding member of the community. Because let me just say that membership right now is half price for all membership in the GovCon community. It's going to be the de facto community, so it doesn't matter who you are. At some point, you're going to come back to the community, because we're creating a community. Instead of going to Facebook, going to LinkedIn groups, all of those folks is going to start to migrate to this new community that we built here. So think of a number between 1 and 500 and put it into the chat area. And then in a second here, Lainey, she wrote down her favorite number, and she's going to say what that is. And then we're going to give away a free membership into the GovCon community.
Yeah, so everybody put your number. And Abe, I want to ask a question. If somebody's in here and they are like, I have to get in the GovCon community, I am wanting to do the teaming partnership, can they just join the community, or they need to have a membership to do the teaming partnership?
Yeah, they do need to have a membership. Anyone can come and utilize certain resources that's in, like if you want to look for events, you can come and check that out. If you want to look at industry news, right? We put industry news into the community. So instead of you going to 20 different websites looking at what's happening in the world of government contracting, we're aggregating all of these different industry news into one place. Lots of things are happening inside the GovCon community. But you do not need membership to take advantage of certain benefits, but you do need membership to be able to pitch at a silver level or higher to be able to pitch on Teaming Tuesday, because we don't want a whole bunch of free people coming on and just pitching, because we want people to come and invest in themselves and invest in the community, who's going to come and contribute to make the community better. So
Perfect. Well, yeah, and reach out. I've put our information. It's info@govcontractors.org is our email if you have any questions. I'm going to let a couple of more chats come through, and then we will be picking a winner.
All right, so let's see. Last call. If you're still hanging out with us, we're about to wrap up. While we're waiting for everybody's number, Lainey, you want to talk about what our next episode is going to be about?
Yes, I'm so very excited. I have a friend and a client coming on. Her name is Becky Martin. She's at Knox Martin Foundation, and it's we have a couple different episode styles that we do, but this is a winner's circle. So she's going to be talking about how she in her organization, she's a large organization, but just 2 employees, how they single-handedly fundraised $1 million for an amazing organization. So I'm really excited to talk to her and just be able to unpack how you can also raise that money for your organization and see what we can learn from her.
So that's next week, same time, Wednesday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, and 10:30 Central. So join us next week. We're going to be talking about that there.
Yes, we're every Wednesday. So this week, nobody actually picked the number, but the final number was 378. So that was my number that I picked. And I think the closest person that got to it was
359?
What?
359? Is that the closest?
No, 387, which is Karen Charles.
Karen. Oh, awesome. So send us an email, Karen Charles, and just say giveaway winner. And then what we will do, we will send you a special link to go ahead and get your free membership in the GovCon community. It's a 1-year free membership in the GovCon community. For those of you who are not winning, yes, you are still winners, because we're doing a 50% discount on founding members right now. This is for a very limited time. And so once we're in the alpha launch of the community right now. So once that's done, that special half price being a founding member will go away forever. So if you're not yet a member, become a founding member. Membership starts at $25 a month. And it goes up from there. Lots of different perks for each different tier. So do that. So with that, we're going to wrap up today. Thanks for hanging out with us for another episode of the Grants and Government Contract Podcast. If you are here with us, that means you want to navigate this here. And so we appreciate you joining us. And Lainey, as we are wrapping up, what is our final saying to everybody?
You're 1 grant away and you're 1 contract away.
Yes, achieving all your goals, dreams, whatever you want to accomplish for your business and your personal life, you're 1 contract, 1 grant away. So until next time, thanks for hanging out with us, and we will see you in another episode. Have a good one, everybody.
See you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.